So Dan, I know that DK Saddles is a totally custom saddle company. You can get whatever bells and whistles you want, but the one thing that we have to remember no matter what your saddle looks like from the outside is the maintenance of saddles. So this is a little older saddle that I bought from Danny quite a few years ago, and the air in it needs to be readjusted for this young mare. But I think I would like to ask you, Dan, what do you feel regular people, no matter if they have one of your saddles or another kind of saddle, need to be doing to look at for maintenance on saddles?
Yeah, I mean, 3 things in horses change horses: work, feed, age, and also 4th is metabolism. So horses change about 3 times a year. The 2 most important times of a year to analyze your saddle is in the biggest changes of the horse, which is fall time. Metabolism slows down, weight gain goes up. They're horses are meant to live outside, so they're meant to put on fat during winter to survive. It's even humans. Humans will put on that 5 to 15 pounds during winter, and they'll shed it during spring because of their metabolism speeding up and slowing down. Springtime, metabolism goes up, weight gain goes down. So we need to be able to change our saddles so the saddles refit at that time. So twice a year, fall and spring are very important times to have your saddles checked. Also in the wood and tree industry, you get a lot of broken trees. You get a lot of broken tree points. I have found lots of trees where the bottom of the tree point up to the stirrup bar is broken right off. So you're sitting on the stirrup bar. So people didn't know that because it sits in a pocket. So it's good to have somebody come and analyze your saddle to make sure that everything's good. Sometimes spring steel breaks, sometimes gullet plates break, or they spread, they're not holding the position. So you need to have that maintenance time. The air system that Tina runs with, or that I run with in my saddles, is to me the best system in the world. Do air bladders break? Of course, they have the ability to break. I have saddles out there that are 18 years old I've never replaced an air bladder on. I have saddles out there that are 8 months old that I've replaced two air bladders. It's when you manufacture something, it's why did I go buy that truck brand new off the lot and 3 months later the alternator went. Things break because when we manufacture things we have fault. So it's the air is by far the nice system because it's so cushiony to the horse. So that when the horse's muscle moves through, the air has the ability to move with it. So moving with the muscle is a slight massage during riding, which promotes, stimulates more blood. With more blood comes more oxygen. More oxygen creates faster healing, faster muscle building. So lots of times when people feel their saddles and they say, oh, there's way more air in the left than the right, that's the way it should be because every horse is asymmetrical. This horse here also is hollow on the left side. So the left side of his body here is less than the right. If I stand here, I can see his right side of his longissimus dorsi, and I can see the left side. If I go to the other side, I can't see the left, I can just see the right. So his longissimus dorsi muscle is dropped on the left side, which means this saddle is fit to the hollow left. Now this air bladder here has ample amount of air in it. As long as, when you have an air saddle, if I go to touch it like that, it'll feel hard. You'll feel there's no movement in it at all. That tells me that the air bladder is broken. And sometimes it's simple as just a hose that's in here. It might over time and corrode and it might get a small crack and then it has a hole in it. So then the bladder will go empty. But then when I go to fill it back up again, I'll find the hole and fix it by just cutting that off. But the air system's by far the best system in the world. Both air bladders in the back seem good to me. Both in the front seem good. Now the right bladder might get a little bit more air in it. I might put another puff of air in the right front and the right back, but that's about all I would do to it because the air is good in it. It fits his asymmetry nice.
And it's absolutely amazing to me, Dan. Like sometimes you put one pump of air and it makes a total difference to the rider when they're sitting on the horse.
Yes.
And I think in the Western version of this series, you'll see that Kim found the same thing when she got a chance to ride her first time in an air saddle. So, you know, when people are doing these things with shims and putting saddles on, the smallest amount makes a big difference in the balance of the horse's back.
Absolutely. And the big thing is too is that if you feel the amount of air difference in here, when you're shimming a saddle, if you're not putting at least an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch of shim, you're not doing anything. And if you take an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch and you put it in a shim, in a pad where it stops there, you've created a fairly decent rigid point there, which is an inconsistent pressure to the horse. As we talked earlier, a horse wants consistent pressure from front to back, top to bottom. I don't want to walk around with a wrinkle in my sock, and I don't want to walk around with a pebble in my shoe. Neither does your horse. That's why, again, with wool is very bad, because so many people out there that are stuffing wool into saddles don't know how they're doing or don't know what they're doing. So the first thing they're doing is stuffing the panel so hard to try and get it flat. And that's not good. Then you create too much rigid points on a horse. And if we take the hardness of wool, for example, you take compared to air, see how easily air moves away. People say that air is rigid, air is hot. You feel that panel, the panel is absolutely cold. And air runs cool and it runs soft. If I put the saddle on top and I girth it up and I put Tina inside it, I could take this panel and I could push away in like that. I could never do that to a wool saddle. So when I put a wool saddle on top of a horse, his back, I girth it down, I sit in it, the transformation of pressure is 100% straight down into that muscle. Now I've compressed that muscle. Compression of muscle means less blood flow. Less blood flow is less oxygen. Less oxygen means it doesn't heal and it doesn't build as fast, but not only that, over a period of time, you'll fatigue the muscle because lack of oxygen. So your muscle will fatigue far quicker in a wool flock saddle than it ever will in an air-filled saddle.
And Dan, could you talk to us about your air bladders versus, I know there is another air system out there that they say it's an air system,
The care
but
system.
actually it's just foam with holes in it?
Because what this is called the flare system. It's made out of England. They patented it. It has 4 bladders, 1 for each quadrant, and you fill them up individually. After the flare came out, then one other company came out and called it Care. Not flare, Care, and they called it the air system. But the problem with that is it's not air at all. They build cups. So the cups follow the contour of the bladder, or of the panel, and then it's like a cup, and then they take a 1/2 inch piece of foam and they put it inside the cup, and they put a lid over top of it, and they close it like a sardine can. Whatever air is caught in the middle of that is what they say air is. But when it's in the saddle, you have wool between the tree and the cup, and below the cup you have wool between that and the horse. So now you have this cup that is not air and is not adjustable and has no ability to move, and it's encased by two films of wool. So it's much rigid. If you feel them panels, they're hard like wool, not soft and supple like this. Now, also in saddle fitting, when I was talking about wool putting so much pressure over the back muscles and all that, in 2009, in the University of New Mexico, they did a Western saddle fit on Western horses and Western saddles. They did 150 Western saddles. They found 150 Western saddles that didn't fit anything. But then, of course, you can't fit asymmetries, and the trees are not right. But also, they did a test on how much pressure a horse's muscle can withstand before it damages the muscle. A horse's muscle can withstand 2 pounds of pressure before you damage it. From 2 pounds to 4 pounds, you're putting enough pressure over that muscle that you're truly damaging the muscle. And then from 4 pounds to 6 pounds, that's where you're compressing so much muscle in such a small area that you're killing the follicle of the hair and killing the hair, so you're creating white hairs on your horse. So many horses they ride, I have so many people, they say, oh yeah, you know what, I've never created a white hair on a horse, I've never hurt a horse. But yet every time I palpate their horse is 10 out of 10 for sore. Just because you didn't create white hair doesn't mean that your horse is not sore. It means that you haven't got between the 4 to 6 pounds of pressure per square inch. So to me, everything that I do is about distributing weight, because when you distribute weight, you bring your pressure mass down. In my saddles, I bear anywhere from 1.4 to 1.7, 1.6 pounds per square inch, which means I'm well underneath the 2. And the reason why I do that is because my panels are extremely large, so that I bear weight over a much larger area. It's very important to have big panels, wide panels. And with the air system, the way I designed my panel system, the slope down here, when I put it on top of the horse, because of the air, that air will flatten out and conform to the round of the horse's rib cage. So now I get a much more weight-bearing surface on the horse, which brings my point of contact and my pressure points to under 2 pounds per square inch easily. Okay?
So this would be a great time then, Dan, to talk about foam, because we haven't mentioned that yet. And there's many English saddles out there that are foam flocked. And they're saying that they can do things like with laser cutting foam and whatnot. But once foam's in a shape, is it not just that shape, or what is your feelings on foam and the shaping of that?
Foam, in my professional opinion, fits nothing. Never can, never will, because you can't adjust it. Your horse changes 3 times a year. When your horse changes, how do you change it? You ship your saddle back to Italy so that they can cut a new panel or this or that. Again, you take a look at any foam saddle. Even some of the ones out there that in the jumping world, they call themselves custom saddles with a foam panel, and they're perfectly symmetrical. So it's going to fit nothing, because it's always going to fall left or fall right. But in the jumping world, they use so many saddle pads. Same as the Western world. They call themselves the saddles close contact. Well, how is it close contact when you got 4 inches of saddle pad between your horse and your saddle? That's no close contact. That's way off your horse. And the closer you are to your horse, the safer he feels, and the more quiet he feels, because he can feel you around him, supported by him. So foam, to me, is nothing. If you feel foam, it's dead. It has no give to the horse. Anytime you see a saddle that's symmetrical, you know it's not fitting any horse, because it can't sit straight if it's fit symmetrical. It has to be fit asymmetrical, like in the panels.
Well, Dan, we can't thank you enough for coming out today and spending the afternoon. I think this has been a really informative afternoon for people, and it really will help people understand and even just look at what they can do for their own horse to see, you know, if they can make it more comfortable and what they could consider with their own saddles they have at home.
Right.
Once again, Dan's website is dksaddlery.com, and we really invite you to have a look through there. DK Saddlery is also on social media, so you can catch them there as well. And I know that Dan is an amazing educator, so if you ever wanted to have him out to your barn, I know he does do clinics to be able to introduce people to saddle fitting, and he loves to do the Dare to Compare. I think that's the last thing that we should end on here. Dan, can you tell us a little bit about your Dare to Compare and what that does for people to understand what's happening with their saddle versus when the saddle stops trapping the shoulder?
Right. So I started doing the Dare to Compare about 18 years ago. Because again, as I say all the time, one thing man has never taught a horse to do is lie. So a horse, when I put a saddle on, if it doesn't pinch him, it doesn't hurt him, he'll move freely, he'll be soft, he'll be supple. And then if I put a saddle on that does pinch him, then he is showing me right away. So I always let the horse tell me if he likes the saddle or he doesn't like the saddle. So what I'll do is I'll take my saddle and I'll fit it to a horse, I'll put it on top of the horse, and then we'll girth it up, and I'll have the people ride for 15-20 minutes. I'll show the audience how the horse moves through the neck, the head, the eyes, the back, the stride, the fall of the foot. You'll have a fall of the foot which is soft. You can barely hit the ground, and then you'll go to another saddle and he'll be pounding on the ground because he can't get his withers free. So I'll show them all these things, and then I'll take my saddle off and I'll put theirs on top and let the horse show you within strides to minutes how much everything goes away when you trap the shoulder and you affect the back of the horse. So dare to compares to me are extremely educational, because I just did my last dare to compare was in Sweden and Norway, where I did 40 dare to compares in a weekend. All 40 horses in my saddle proved beyond any doubt that my saddle won all 40 dare to compares. And it's because even if a horse has got an adjustable saddle and this and that, it doesn't mean it fits right. It doesn't mean it's correct. So dare to compares are extremely important if you're open to a dare to compare. But if you go to a dare to compare with closed eyes and closed mind, then we're not going to fix anything. But dare to compares are great. I love them.
Yeah, and I think for us
actually,
riders,
I did a dare to compare with you.
Yes, we did. We did. That totally switched me over. And I've known Dan for a long time. And he was like, "You got to just sit in this new saddle" when he got the monoflap, and it was totally different, 100%. I was sold right away, I have to tell you. But I think for us as riders, we're up there trying to feel, even if we're just amateur riders doing our best.
Yeah.
I think the feel is the biggest thing, and to get us balanced on top of them balanced, it's just night and day.
Yes, I mean, and as I've said through my talks, balance is everything to horse and to rider. When the balance is not right in the saddle, the rider doesn't feel right, the horse doesn't feel right, because the rider's doing aids inconsistently and everything else. I mean, it's balance is everything in a saddle. And it just is everything. When I talk also about an aid, I tell people all the time, the amount of aid that a rider gives a horse, the more aid you have to give, the more resistance your horse has to go through the front of your saddle to give you what you're asking. When there is no resistance or restriction in the front of your saddle, your horse, you'll use a third of the aid to get twice the reaction. And twice as quick, because the horse doesn't go through any of the resistance.
Well, that's fantastic. I hope you guys contact Danny, because I've learned a ton this afternoon from him and over the last 20 years. I can't say enough what an amazing professional he is and how much he's willing to educate those that are out there. So thanks again, Dan.
Thank you both for having me, and thank you for inviting me, Tina. It was great to come today.
Yay.
Thank you.